Hello everyone, and welcome back to Occult Perspectives. I'm your host, Tyler Smith. If you're new to this channel, what I do on this YouTube channel is I break down different esoteric and occult research subjects. This includes Kabbalah, Freemasonry, the Tree of Life, the Tree of Death, and many, many other subjects. So if you're interested in any of those things, ceremonial magic, this is the channel for you, where we talk about these things and break them down, not only from a scholarly perspective, but also how we can apply them in our daily lives as well. So for those of you who have become patrons on the Patreon, very big shout out to all of you. Thank you so much. I recently posted the Tree of Qliphoth, part 1 of that chapter, and I'll probably be ready to post part 2, hopefully in the next 3 days or so. And then after that is chapter 6, the Entered Apprentice. I've actually written most of the chapter out. I just need to go back through and edit some things. Same with the Fellowcraft Degree chapter 2. It's going to be the Master Mason chapter, which is chapter 8. That's going to take me a while, just because of all the information that I have to pull together. So if you're not familiar with my Patreon, what I have available over there is you get audiobook recordings accompanied alongside some classical music or just instrumental piano music. It's an audiobook of my book that I'm working on, Freemasonry and Ceremonial Magic. So if you're interested in checking that out, it's only $5 a month. You can cancel it after the first month if you want to. That's totally up to you. And yeah, it's only one tier so far. It's $5. So there will be a $10 tier at some point with some things on there, but that's going to be a little while. And I also have an instructional video on the Patreon as well about how to do the lesser invoking ritual of the pentagram. So if any of that sounds like it might hold some value for you, definitely go and check out the Patreon if you want to support me there. So with all of that introductory stuff out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the topic of today's video. This video could really take a while, depending on how much time I end up having. But the subject of this video, and don't worry, I know somebody wanted a video on gematria and numerology. I do plan on getting to that video at some point. But today, and I've wanted to do a video on this subject for a while, the subject is death. What is death really? What are some of the different things that the spiritual people, the people in the spiritual community, what do they have to say about what happens after death? What are some of my personal viewpoints on it all? What is it at its core, really? What is some of the symbolism surrounding death, such as the Black Dragon? Some of the emblems from the Master Mason degree, the 3rd degree of Freemasonry, because that deals with the theme of death quite a bit, and resurrection. And so yeah, just all of these things. I don't have any notes written for this. This is such a comprehensive subject that I figured I could probably just talk on it for a while. I have a lot of different viewpoints on it. So with that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and jump to the theme of Scorpio. What does Scorpio represent? It's very much in line with this death type energy. Scorpio, the archetype. Let's view Scorpio less from, oh, that's my sun sign, to let's look at the archetype of what Scorpio represents. It's always death. Usually in the Egyptian pantheon, it can be represented by Typhon or Set. Those are the two night side forces, or quote-unquote adversarial forces, representing more the negative polarity in that pantheon. And before I forget to mention too, the music that you're hearing, these tones, It's coming from a YouTube channel called Self-Healing Collective. It's called 528 Hertz, Talk with God, Meditation, Prayer, Music. Receive divine guidance, love, clarity, and wisdom. And this is a really nice, soft tone. Sometimes I like the softer, peaceful tones, and then sometimes the darker tones if you're wanting to work, get more in touch with some of the darker aspects of psyche. There's tones that are good for that too. So I like a wide spectrum of things. I listen to a lot of different meditative tones and sounds. Getting back to the subject at hand, we were talking about the archetype of Scorpio itself and how it represents transformation and death. And death is really, at the end of the day, what it is it's transformation. It is energy and transference, or energy that is prone to change. You could view it that way as well. So as the world goes through grand cycles, as empires fall and new empires are built up and rise, and people come and go, cultures change, death is like this, it's this underlying force of transformation that's like seemingly invisible, but yet it shapes the whole of reality as we know it. So really, death is more just this messenger. It's often personified as like the Grim Reaper or Father Time that holds a sigh in his hand. We see that figure a lot. And of course, that's just it's like a symbolical representation of death, but it is this messenger. And it's just like, you could even look at figures like Thoth as well as beings that are like intermediate between life and death. They help the initiate, or they help the soul travel through life and death. But even though there is just physical death is not exactly the same as symbolic death. They are kind of one and the same. They represent the same force, but there are differences, because in our lifetime we can go through symbolic death and resurrection without actually physically dying, and that's really like the goal of any initiate in any system. And depending on what kind of system it is, you're going to go further with it in some. Like the Qliphothic initiation, for example, is going to take you through deeper initiations and deeper levels of death and rebirth than maybe some of the more quote-unquote, light traditions. It just depends, and it's different for every person. Like, each person has their own unique journey. They create spiritual systems so these concepts can be understood, but at the end of the day, it's still going to be your journey, walk the path that's right for you. But the energies of death are always going to be kind of a force that come in and interplay to some degree. So death is this messenger force. It's kind of just, it's always right there. It's always ever present. And in Masonry, they use the symbol of the skull and bones. It's kind of like an old Templar imagery too. And the pirates used to put the skull and bones on pirate ships. And a lot of people say that pirates originally came from the Templars. I don't really know how true that is. I think it was Jordan Maxwell that said that. He's like, who do you think the Pirates of the Caribbean are? They're Templars. So it's very interesting stuff, all of it. Yeah, the skull and crossbones, it's a reminder of that mortality, so that in the actions of our life, we forget not that our time in just this physical form is short, even though our souls are eternal. And if we're in touch with that higher source or self aspect of ourselves, we will be more in alignment, and we will produce works, tangible works in this life. For me, it's like writing my book and doing this YouTube channel and being able to create music and all of these things. These are all ways that I can channel my energy in a more like divine way, quote unquote divine way in this life. Like, it actually leaves some kind of impression upon people, and people are able to be inspired by it, rather than just the basic humanities of just, the necessities of life. A lot of people just get caught up in the necessities of life, and they never really have that freedom to express themselves like in an artistic or creative way, or express themselves in a way that expresses that higher spirit. It's that real aspect of self, really getting into the roots of like who and what you are at your core as a spirit, not just as a physical being. Now, physical components are important as well. You know, we are physical beings, we came here to be humans, but we also want to tap into this higher energetic frequency as well. And a lot of the times working with the energies of death without actually, you know, dying, or we use those energies instead to transform our consciousness and our awareness, it's really, it becomes beneficial to one who is on the path to be able to take the energies of death and transmute them in that way. Of course, if we look at like Da'at on the Tree of Life, it's the 11th hidden Sephiroth. It originally was a normal Sephiroth on the original Tree of Life, and then after the quote fall, it kind of caved in and formed the abyss and became this portal or this gateway between Universe A and Universe B. So there's a lot of interesting information regarding that, and that I was actually just writing about that in my book, the chapter on the Qliphothic tree, part 2, which I'll be uploading soon, so I'll have some of that in there as well. Of course, Asanoth Mason's The Tree of Death, I think it's called, and Thomas Carlson's Kabbalah, Qliphoth, and Goetic Magic. Those two books are great for understanding the Qliphothic tree if you're interested in learning that. Give me just a moment. I will be right back. So yeah, Doth or death, or knowledge, it's actually the fruit of the tree of knowledge is Da. It is the apple in the Garden of Eden. So this hidden 11th Sephiroth, it's an important component of the death energy to understand. Another important symbolism of death energy, sorry, I gotta get back to Scorpio as well, because I didn't really get into that as deeply as I wanted to, so I'm kind of jumping around on topics. I'm just trying to cover as much ground as I can. Like I said, I didn't take notes. I probably should have just jotted a few things down. But the black dragon symbolism, Amalek, actually the dragon of the Amalekites. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but they were actually like the traditional enemies of the Jewish people. Very interesting stuff, and this dragon of Amalek kind of is very crucial and important to the Qliphothic tree, the Universe B, or the backside of the Qliphothic tree. This dragon reigns that region. So it is the destroyer, it's the bringer of destruction, and death energy in general is just represented by this black dragon force. If you want to learn more about this black dragon symbology, I highly recommend you check out Universal Mastery's video on Amalek, the black dragon. Great video. It has a lot of good information in it. He's way more scholarly, attuned to that information. He's been studying that stuff for a long time. So I became familiar with the symbolism of the black dragon through Skyrim, actually. There's a character or a dragon called Alduin, and he's the world eater or the world destroyer, and that's his function in the cosmos. He's like the firstborn of the dragonborn, so it kind of has that similar resonance with Lucifer almost. Lucifer being the firstborn angel, Alduin being the firstborn of the dragons, and then it's Parthenox, who is one of the younger dragons, who used to work with Alduin, but he ends up helping the hero in Skyrim, the dragonborn, the one who uses the voice, the shout. We know the significance of the voice, the logos, the word. So there's a lot of things in, as I've said before, in the Elder Scrolls games that come into play in the esoteric field. It's a very occult video game. And so yeah, Alduin is the world eater or the world destroyer, and he comes to basically end the world. And the Greybeards, you as the hero, you're all, I gotta fulfill my destiny, I've gotta save the world. But I remember at some point, I'm actually playing through the main quest of Skyrim again. At some point in the game, the Greybeards are kind of like, oh, maybe Alduin's meant to just destroy the world. Maybe the world is meant to be destroyed. Maybe it's just too corrupted. So there's always there's always this force that will come in at the end of the day to be the ultimate reconciler. So we could almost view death as like this ultimate reconciler that comes in at the end of the day. And I think I'm going to use a picture of Alduin actually from Skyrim, probably for the picture of this video, just because it's such a good representation of what this energy is. Getting back to the Scorpio archetype or energy, there's 3 layers of Scorpio. There's the Scorpion, which stings. So this is like the unevolved Scorpion who's just always angry and always wants to attack and sting. Then there's the wise serpent. The snake is the 2nd stage, which is knowledge, illumination. We know serpent symbology has a lot to do with spiritual intelligence, and even Christ said, "Be ye as wise as serpents." And then there's the 3rd stage, which is the phoenix. The phoenix rises from the ashes, and it's a very good symbol to explain like the Master Mason degree, rising, you know, like the phoenix from the ashes. The symbology fits perfectly with that degree. And the phoenix overall is just a very powerful symbol. No matter what system of spirituality you're using, it's a super universal symbol, so it doesn't belong like to any one group or anything. And the phoenix also corresponds, it's one of the 4 sacred animals of the Ezekiel's vision, normally seen as the eagle. But what is the eagle actually? The eagle is really the phoenix. Same with the United States bald eagle. It's really emblematic of the phoenix at the end of the day. So you've got that element of fire that comes in, and transmutation happens through fire. The black diamond is formed through fire. So though death energy can be harsh and it brings transformation, it also clears the energy and allows new energy to come in as well. It's more of that Gebura force on the tree of life, severity, it cuts down, and then mercy is like the abundance. It's more of the addition, the abundance and prosperity aspect. So you've got like addition and minus symbols, literally, like the positive and negative polarity charges on the poles. So this all comes into play and helps you understand more and more. So Scorpio being this sex and death energy, those who are more aligned with the Scorpio archetype, you're going to have more of that in your life. You may be more prone to, you know, being into occult type information, maybe being an initiate of some kind. So anybody who gets into the occult is dealing with Scorpio type energies anyway. These overall have a lot to do with sex, death, and the occult in general has a lot to do with Scorpio. So getting further into, like, you know, seems pretty unjust, you know, when we lose like a loved one or something like that. It's very painful. It's another process which transforms us but makes us stronger, but it is also like, why does it have to be this way? And while on the mundane level, you know, it pisses us off, it makes us angry. We're like, why do we have to lose this thing or this person? But on a higher soul level, we understand these things. And Universal Mastery was actually he's been talking about it in a couple of his newer videos. When you go to the place after death, it's called the soul space, I think he called it. It's kind of where you meet up with other people of your soul family. And this isn't only people who played like a positive or supporting role. It can also be people who played an adversarial role in your life, but that were all pushing you towards your true purpose. So you kind of like meet up with the soul family in the soul space. So go and check out some of his videos on death and what, you know, death ultimately means, and kind of get his viewpoints on that. But yeah, I think, and there's also people who have lots of like near-death experiences. So they'll go through something that, you know, almost causes their physical death, but they go through like a spiritual experience too in the process. And sometimes their soul is taken to a place where they see like a bright light. Almost similar to like a psychedelic experience or something of that nature. So there's multiple accounts of that, and I think there's whole YouTube channels that are actually dedicated to like near-death experiences and studying their effects and like the experiences that people have. So that's a super interesting thing to look into as well. But yeah, these are ultimately like hard questions to answer. We know that this is a powerful force. We know that it's always just right on the edge. Like we can kind of tap into this energy and utilize it in different ways. whether it be for quote-unquote good or bad, but it's always going to be of a transformative quality. It's always going to be a transforming type thing. So there's many different aspects to look into when we're viewing this theme of death. And yeah, it's just anytime that it seems so unfortunate, you know, from our perspective here on Earth, but somehow in some way on the higher scale, that soul, because we are all where we are supposed to be, like we are where we're meant to be, and we're gonna go where we're meant to go. There are so many hidden or occult aspects or forces behind the scenes at play. So the more you come into an understanding of this knowledge, the more you can really almost become comfortable with the idea of death. And it's something that I actually like think about a lot. Like I just have tried to become more and more comfortable with it as I grow older. And it is always going to be, it's never going to be like an easy thing though. And you know, it is an evolving force. It does push evolution forward, but it's also, you know, but at the end of the day, we are all source anyway. So there's nothing to really like fear at the end of the day. There's nothing that we can ultimately hold on to forever. Eventually our souls are going to be, you know, we'll go to the soul space or wherever, and then our highest self will make the decision, you know, where we move next, like in what direction we go next and where we're going to incarnate and all of these things. You know, there are ways that you can kind of tap into this type of stuff, you know, here in the physical, but it takes discipline. It takes getting into and studying spiritual practices a little bit and coming to an understanding of how to tap into maybe even past life regression. So you're learning more about your soul's journey overall rather than maybe getting caught up in just the play or, you know, what the lower ego thinks it needs to do. And this is part of like coming into contact with your higher self or your holy guardian angels, where you really start to understand more of your life's true purpose, and you're living and functioning in that mode of reality rather than getting caught up in all the things that everyone seems to get caught up in, the drama, the bullshit, all of that stuff. And you can kind of override that or overcome that, and not get caught up in those kind of death energies, but rather the transformative and transcending effects of death energy. So I don't think I'm going to go as long as I thought I was going to with this video, only because I didn't take notes. And I'm kind of running things through my mind. I'm like, what have I missed? You know, what else is there to talk about? But yeah, there have been some really interesting moments in life where there is like kind of this death and rebirth, you know, experience. And when I was a lot younger, I had one of those experiences. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but let's just say this was over a decade ago. And, you know, I was more or less doing things I shouldn't have done. And I had this moment where, you know, I just went too far. And I literally experienced, I thought it felt like death. Like I couldn't even have mental functionings anymore. It's like I couldn't even think. I was just in this state of death. But it wasn't like a spiritual experience. It was a very scary experience. And I remember asking my friend, I was like, when is this going to end? When is this going to end? This is terrifying. And he's like, just give it a little bit and you'll be fine. And sure enough, I was fine, but it was scary. That was the scariest experience of my life. Those like 5 minutes or so, you know, 5 to 10 minutes that I was really in this place that I shouldn't have been, being younger and making like really dumb mistakes. I thought I'd messed up, you know, I thought I had killed myself. I thought I was literally going to die, but then sure enough, I came out of it, you know, at the end. And gosh, I remember waking up the next day having a new appreciation for life like I had never had before. And that was a time where I really dealt with a lot of depression and things of that nature, like really hardcore. So it really turned my mind around. Like, even though I had this terrible, terrifying experience, I now had this new appreciation for life, and I was no longer as scared of death as I was before. So it really was, like, at the end of the day, it was an illuminating experience, because it made me stronger, but it was also terrifying. And I would never go through that again. So very scary stuff. I'm so glad to be here doing what I do. So yeah, some of the emblems of that are related to death in the Master Mason degree, you have the hourglass. We see the symbology of that, I think, in like Aladdin. Isn't there an hourglass? Lots of movies, TV shows, Days of Our Lives, soap opera. So the hourglass and the sands, of course, represent the time ever flowing, ever moving. So you want to take advantage of every single second. And my cheat code, as I always say, is flip the hourglass over. When the hourglass is about to run out, just flip the hourglass over. How can you flip the hourglass over and restart the sands in your own life? How can you reverse the aging process? You know, through learning to calm the nervous system and learning meditation techniques, which help you to really get in tune with your body and learn to control your breathing and your heart and all of these things. And, you know, create that sacred space, the sacred temple. Your body is the temple of God. So working on the self in that way can be very beneficial. You've got the hourglass and the sai, like we talked about before, death, or the Grim Reaper carries a sai in his hand, or a sickle. It's that force which cuts down. It's that Saturnian force. That's what I forgot to mention in this video, is the energy of Saturn. Saturn plays very heavily into the energy and theme of death. So it's that restricting, binding energy, the cutting off type energy, very Gabura type energy. Well, really, it's Baina is really the sphere that deals with Saturn. But if we look at like an archangel like Zophkael, she very much embodies that kind of like nocturnal dark side. And there's even a goddess in Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. I think it's called Nocturne or something like that. Very much typifies that type of energy. So you've got that and Alduin in that game, and there's other figures that definitely would be representative of death and other like dark, quote unquote darker polarity subjects. So the sai, it can cut the thread of life. So the astral cord has something to do with that. It's a pretty esoteric view on that. If you've ever watched Hercules, the Disney movie, there's the three sisters of fate, and I know she has scissors and she cuts the cord of one of the characters. I can't remember who it is, but that's the whole symbology of that there. And then you've got the sprig of acacia, which is really it's an emblem of immortality, and I've talked about that a little bit on this channel. P.D. Newman has a book that's really intriguing on that. It's called Alchemically Stoned, The Psychedelic Secrets of Freemasonry. I did a video on that like a couple years ago. It's probably been like 2 years or so since I've done a video on that. I actually want to read that book again, so I haven't read that in a while. But yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up pretty well. I kind of left it open for, you know, a lot of interpretation, but I kind of wanted to do that with this video. I didn't want to just like straight up like just define, you know, all of these, like what is death exactly. It's kind of this force that's just you learn more and more about, and it doesn't just mean physical death. It's like transformation. Look at the tarot card of death. I'll pull it up here actually. Because we know that it represents transformation. Of course, it's the 13th card, so there is some symbolism to do with the 13. And it's the skeleton riding on a horse, and he's carrying a flag, and then you've got kind of like the Pope or religious guy on the ground. There's death in the background of the card. But really, it's this force that just comes in and it destroys all the old. It's this ever-permanent force. So all these spiritual ideologies, all of these things, everything at the end of the day must be overcome and conquered by chaos, right? Primordial chaos and darkness is what this dark force of death represents, which is really just taking us more into the primal womb of the universe, so to speak. Alrighty, I think I've rambled on long enough about this theme, so I am going to go ahead and end the video here. So thank you everyone for watching. If you are not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe and make sure you give the video a like. If you want to be notified of new videos, make sure you go ahead and ring the notification bell and join the Patreon as well if you would like to. So this is my beautiful fiance, Casey. So this is her first time on the YouTube channel. I keep trying to get her to either come on a video and we'll do some talks, or maybe some live, have her on a live stream and we can all chat together. So, but yeah, I think that covers the subject pretty well. Like I said, I could ramble on and on about things, but that pretty much covers the basics, and then you can just go out and do the research yourself to further expand your knowledge. So alrighty, thank you everyone, and hopefully I'll see you really soon. Peace and blessings.